Welcome back to Yellowfin University. We're doing a follow-up lesson about data transformations. Now previously, Tom took you through what are data transformations and how to also turn them on from a security perspective. And he started to take you through the first step. There are 3 steps in total: the input step, transformation step, and then finally the output step. So Tom showed you all the different methods of being able to input data and extract it from databases, from CSV files, even from third-party sources. So let's actually go and create a transformation now, and I'm going to walk you through the different transformation steps and the things to keep an eye on. Now, just before we do jump into that, I guess I will say, I'll just explain that transformations actually are allowing you to manipulate your data. So if your data's dirty, or just perhaps it's not in the right structure for your reporting, this is your opportunity within this step to actually put it into the format that you want to actually report off. And so transformations, there are heaps of different types of transformations. By default, Yellowfin comes with most of the ones that you're seeing in this screenshot, such as aggregating, calculated fields, applying filters to the data, merging and splitting. And then there's a bunch of additional ones that you can download from our marketplace online. If you're a paying customer, remember you can access anything from the marketplace for free. If you're not a paying customer, you can kind of only preview them. You can't download the connectors or the plugins. So some of those additional ones that you can get your hands on are the data science models, so such as R, H2O, PFL, PFA, and PMML. As well as even there's a lot of unique ones that people have been creating themselves to meet their own needs. So we've had people who have created data type conversions, number precisioning. We've even got our hands on a really great one that does geocoding of addresses. So there's lots coming, and always keep an eye on what's out there and work out what you could benefit from. So without further ado, let's jump across into Yellowfin, and we're going to create a new transformation flow. Now you've already seen the input steps, so I'm just going to skip over this, and I'm just going to bring in an extract from a single table from one of the data sources I have available to me. So I'm having a look at my athlete fact table, which has a combination of all sorts of data. It's got people IDs and camp IDs, how much money they're spending, how much things are costing, therefore we can work out things like profit. We can even have a look at their ratings and all sorts of stuff. So I'm just going to press apply on that to give us some data to start to play with. Now step 2 is our transformation step, so just here underneath it. And here you'll see all the different transformations that I've got installed. So as I did mention, some of these come completely out of the box and others you have to go download from the marketplace. But your first sort of 3 plus merge and split, so there's normally 5 at least by default that it'll come with. Now, all you have to do, very similar to the input step, is choose a particular step, transformation, and we just drag it in. So let's just start at the top and have a look at an aggregation. Drag and drop. Now the difference here is I need to connect this up before I can do anything. At the moment there's nothing appearing in my configuration menu. So I'm going to click on my athlete fact and drag my connection to the aggregate transformation. Now it actually has access to whatever data was stored in this input method. So now my aggregate step will look like this. It can see all the different fields that are coming from that input step, and I can choose an aggregation method. So I can just remove them, or I can put in none. So if I wanted to create like a really summarized table that literally just gave me how many people attended how many different camps for every month and maybe how much money they spent, I would come in here and go count my person ID, count the camps, because that gives me how many people or customers I had. This gives me how many products I sold. Let's sum up how much money they spent with us, and we'll leave in invoice date. And then after that, we're just going to remove all the others. So this will just clear them out. I'm not interested in them. I could have also removed them from this input step, actually, if I probably had have, but it doesn't matter as long as you get rid of it eventually, right? You get the point. I would go remove on all of these, press apply, and you'll notice it changes my preview now to just show me the different fields that I've chosen. So that way I can see for every day how many people attended and how many different camps and things like that there were. So it's just a nice aggregated table for me. Now, very similar to the input step as well, you'll have different submenus within this panel. So fields gives you a bit of a preview of what those fields are, and you actually can move these around. So I might move invoice date to be the very first column so I can see the date and then my metrics. I might even want to rename them. You can see there's automatically changing straight away. Now, if I did have any errors, if something wasn't working properly, they will show up here. So perhaps in some of the other ones, I'll be able to show you some of the errors that will appear. And of course, you've also got your details where you can rename these steps. If you were doing lots of different aggregate functions within the same flow, you probably would want to rename them to call it like date aggregates or something like that, that you can just make sure you can identify which part or which step in the flow it is, and you can provide a description. All right, so that is our aggregate function. I'm actually just going to delete that now after all that hard work. I don't want that. So let's have a look at what else we could do. Calculated fields is the next one. Again, I'm going to drag that in and connect these up. Once it's connected, I can then configure the item. Calculated fields are very simple, so they're using our normal calculated field builder that you're probably used to seeing in other areas of Yellowfin. However, you're limited to being able to only do basic calculations of, plus, minus, times, divide, and using your parentheses. But you can still choose your fields, so you can still go invoiced amount divided by rating as an example, and give it a name. Price per rating, let's call it, and save. Again, that'll do its verification and things like that. That will then simply add a column back to the end of my data set. So it's got all the original data coming in from the input. So fairly simple one there. We can also filter. So filtering is obviously the most useful thing if you're trying to just sort of filter out some of your data. So a really common example is, you might have thousands or hundreds of thousands of records within it, but half of them are expired or perhaps closed accounts or cold accounts or whatever your data set is. And so you want to eliminate something that's actually not relevant to you, I suppose. So let's just do a little example. Status equal to, again, choose different parentheses if you like, and I'm going to say open. I'm actually not sure if open is what my status is, so we'll soon find out if it returns any results or not. No results returned, so open is obviously not one of my statuses, but you get the idea. Clear that filter out. Where are my statuses? They're active. Let's do that. Okay, and now we get filtered down to just our active statuses. That's better. Okay, let's delete our filter. Have a look at the next transformation. This is the GeoCode one I was mentioning before. It's really handy. So let's bring this in. I won't be able to fully set this up because I don't have an API key for them at the moment. But if I connect up the transformation to GeoCode, click on GeoCode. Now, basically what you can do, you need this API key for it to validate properly. However, really all it is actually sort of pointing it to the address data within your data set. So if you had a field in your data that was a single column and it had the entire address, you could just point to it and this is the address field. If you don't have it all in a single field, just turn on the advanced configuration and then you can actually go and assign each column to the relevant one. So here's my city field, my state field, postcode, etc. So yeah, either of those, and then you just simply will press apply and it'll actually be able to go off and match your data. I guess let's try and run this. I don't have the API key, so when I press apply, I should get an error. So now you can actually see what it looks like when something goes wrong. Bright red here, bright red here as well. If we have a look at this errors section, I get an error message appear. So an error code while running the step, a null pointer exception, possibly a bit vague of an email, but I know that's because I haven't completed an API key. So yeah, really useful one. And what that actually then creates are like the geo points and polygons and things of addresses so that you can map way easier. Really good. I'll come back to H2O in a minute. I'll just go through merge and split first because they're more of the default ones. Merging is if you want to be able to bring in or to merge together two different data sets. So I'm just going to go back to my input step here. I could bring in a CSV file, maybe another table from this data set, or maybe some data from a third-party tool. To keep it simple, I'm just going to bring in some data from my database. So I'm going to bring in a different table. And I want to merge these results together. So I simply join this to the merge, and I join, this one to the merge. Now they're both in the merge. Now I'll just set up my person table. So I just want to choose the fields I want and press apply. And now in my merge, I can configure how I want to join them. So I can choose what join type I want to do. I can then configure whether I want them to, or what the join fields are. So person ID will join to person ID and press apply. Okay. Now when I look at this preview of data, you'll see that I've got all the fields from athlete fact coming through here. Notice I have a little purple bar in their header. If I scroll further across, I get a green bar. These are now coming from the second table, the person table. And even if I actually have a look at the configuration menu over here, if I have a look in the fields section, I can see all the different fields, and these will have a purple bar. And then these are my green bars. So again, I can drag these around and reorganize them, as well as rename the fields and things like that. Because whatever this is how it will get written to my output step later. All right, so that is your merge step. I'll get rid of him. Let's have a look at split. Oh, I don't think I need this guy. Split. Now, splitting actually allows you to create, duplicate sets of your data. So I would use split if I had, lots of information in this table, and I actually wanted to split it out to different outputs. So previously we did an aggregation step where I had like the dates and how many people attended and how many camps and how much money, and I kind of created that one summarized table. If for some reason I wanted to be a little bit more detailed, I actually could go let's create separate tables, and one could be the summary of how many athletes we had, and another one could be the summary of how much invoiced we had. Or perhaps they could be based off completely different things. So let's just sort of whip up a small example. So again, I'm going to join split to my athlete facts table. I can pick which fields I want to take across. So I'm going to take my person ID, I'm going to scoot out all of these ones. We'll just keep it simple. So I've got invoice date, and so maybe we just go, I just want to know how many people attended my camp on a particular day. So that's the data I'm going to split out from here. Right. So now that I've set up the split step and I've chosen the fields that I want to split out from this data, you actually can combine transformations. So now I'd actually probably want to aggregate them up, because if you actually look at my data set, my invoice date and my person ID, this is my real person ID, it's not counting up my person IDs. So I'll actually be getting duplicate records. So from split, I'd want to join this to aggregate, and I would configure the person ID to be counting instead. So now we can actually get a count coming through. Then I would connect this up to an output step to fully run and load up the data. You can actually set up a number of splits and aggregates and all sorts of transformations all together, but we're keeping it fairly simple for now. All right, let's get rid of these ones. Let's just backtrack to those data science ones and have a quick look at those. So with the data science ones, I have a couple here uploaded. I'm not going to take you through all of them because they're very, very similar. But I've got R, PMML, and H2O. So as an example, let's bring in R. And so the R script here would actually allow me to be able to have created an R script outside of Yellowfin. And now I want to run the script against the data that Yellowfin can feed to it. and then store it somewhere where a Yellowfin can use it. So that way in my reports, I actually can be showing the results of your script into reports and analytics that are more suited to the business user who you're trying to tell that story to. So I've connected those up, and we just need to configure our R script. First, you need to tell Yellowfin where is the R serve or the R server. If it is internal, you can just leave this off if it's on the same machine that you're working on. If it's external, just turn it on and put in the host name and port of where you've got your R server installed. Then you want to load in your script. So you can load it from a pathway if you like. You can type in a particular path to the file, or you can just upload the file into the Yellowfin. And then you choose how you want the field to actually return, the field return method, I should say, sorry. Whether you want to be appending results or replacing the results every time, things like that. And if you're adding any new fields and things. So you can figure out these options, and then you would press apply when you've got everything all set up. So that's your R process. Let's have a look at one other, let's have a look at PMML as an example. Same sort of thing, let's connect it up. Now with this one, it's a bit simpler. Again, I just either upload my PMML file, or I can change Yellowfin to point to a particular pathway. Depending on your file, when you press your load of it, additional parameters may appear depending on what you've actually created in your model. But this is fairly simple. Okay, so that's it for your transformations there. That should be a bit of a nice introduction for you into what different transformations are available.